The insurance claim sequence from The Incredibles movie is one of the most realistic and heartbreaking scenes in Pixar history, and Bob Parr, aka Mr. Incredible, embodies that sentiment of the world not being fair. This little slice of capitalist critique and existential dread hits harder than a supervillain's attack, and it's a cartoon. But is it just a funny, satirical scene, or was Pixar really trying to expose the grim realities of modern life? Well, two things can be true at once. Let's talk about why this scene feels so real and how it resonates today, especially with the darker headlines recently. Oh, and stick around. We're connecting this to another moment that hit us right in the feels, and why animation somehow nails existential dread seemingly better than live action. First, let's set the stage. The insurance scene happens early in The Incredibles, right after we're introduced to Bob Parr's depressing post-superhero life. He's working at Insuricare, an ominously gray, soul-sucking insurance company that's as lifeless as his cubicle. The scene starts with Bob's boss, the insufferable Gilbert, voiced by Wallace Shawn, berating him for, trying to help people. The juxtaposition of Bob's hulking superhero physique crammed into a tiny cubicle, as he's chastised for having a conscience, is peak Pixar irony. Here's the kicker. Bob subtly helps an elderly woman navigate the labyrinth of the insurance bureaucracy. Use code D9 on this form, he whispers, glancing over his shoulder like he's committing corporate treason. The woman's face lights up with gratitude, but cue Mr. Gilbert, who catches Bob and delivers a scathing lecture about profits and policies. It's a perfect storm of frustration, futility, and the absurdity of a system designed to not work for the average person. Short version. The insurance company deliberately made the process as unhelpful and obtuse as possible so people would give up on valid claims instead of getting a payout. What's supposed to happen is that she would get to someone like Bob, who isn't actually equipped to do anything for their claim, and who in turn can semi-honestly say that there's nothing they can do. But Bob's been in long enough to know the true score, and has too many morals to tell the half-truth that the bosses want him to tell. So he gives her the actual info on how to penetrate the haze and get the actual tools, and FaceTime she needs to get treated right. He told her who to show her policy to in order to actually get her claim approved, and told her the form to file with their legal department to avoid Insuricare's ability to legally deny it. It's like his boss says, his clients are experts, exploiting every loophole, dodging every obstacle. They're penetrating the bureaucracy. Bob recognizes something in the forms hasn't been properly crossed or dotted on the part of Insuricare, but that it's normally on the policyholder or their lawyer to recognize this. There is speculation out there that Norma is probably someone in policy management whose responsibility is to ensure that Insuricare forms are properly filled out by the company, and she'll see that someone didn't do their job properly. If the legal department receives a formal filing, they won't ignore the oversight. As such, someone will likely reach out to Mrs. Hoganson very soon before she actually does get a lawyer, thanks to Bob. Given his hint to check with the legal department and then fill out an additional document on the third floor, it's likely whatever procedure she needed, Insuricare had ruled as voluntary, so he sent her to the legal guys so that they would have to tell her to get the procedure. If she has it in writing that the legal department has declared the procedure as necessary, which they would for liability reasons, then she has an advantage. She could then take their documentation on the procedure's necessity to the finance department and get them to actually pay the bill. It's funny to think, what if every insurance agent just started going out of their way to help customers find loopholes? Anyway, this scene has sparked lots of conversations over the years about how accurate it was, to the point where fans took it upon themselves to decipher the memo that was on Gilbert's desk. There are some illegible parts, but this is what they came up with. According to fans, the letter says to employee from Gilbert. Due to financial cutbacks, you will now be expected to self-expense all office supplies, including but not limited to pencils, erasers, pens, paper, stationery, folders, staples, paper clips, brads, and photocopies. All parking will now be metered by the hour. Electricity consumption and all telephone charges will be deducted from your paycheck. The board of directors at InsureCare wishes to thank you for your selfless sacrifice through this time of financial uncertainty. It is because of you, the employee, that InsureCare has recorded its highest profit in years. More like it's because of your sacrifices that the ones on top get richer while we, the ones actually doing the work, stay poor. Remember, a successful company makes for a successful company. The rest was illegible. Watching this as a kid, this whole scene, unsurprisingly, went right over my head. I just took it for what it was. On the surface, Mr. Incredible tried to save someone, and the mean boss reprimanded him. I didn't have the world knowledge to understand all of the social commentary going on here because of how deep the scene really was. I've seen this brought up a lot recently, and even though this movie is 2 decades old, it's creepy how accurate it was, especially since the movie is speculated to have taken place in the 1960s. When this scene first hit theaters in 2004, audiences laughed, sure. But there was also a collective, knowing sigh from those old enough to understand. Insurance companies being evil? Groundbreaking. The specificity of this moment, from the labyrinthine forms to Bob's quiet rebellion, struck a chord. It's not just about insurance, it's about systems that prioritize profits over people. Social media later turned the scene into a meme goldmine, with captions like, "When you try to do the right thing at your soul-crushing 9 to 5. Millennials and Gen Z, deep in the trenches of student loans and housing crises, latched onto Bob's despair as a symbol of their own battles with bureaucratic absurdity. Fast forward to today, and this scene feels almost prophetic. Remember the recent incident where an insurance CEO's shady practices came to light, and, in a bizarre twist, ended in tragedy? That's not just headline fodder, it's a chilling reminder of the power dynamics Bob was quietly critiquing. The scene underscores a harsh truth. Even animated films can't sugarcoat how broken systems crush both the helpers, Bob, and the helpless, the old woman. Surprisingly enough, Pixar isn't the only studio to explore this theme. In Futurama, remember the Central Bureaucracy episode? Fry and the gang navigate a Kafka-esque nightmare to retrieve a simple delivery confirmation. The layers of bureaucracy are so absurd they're hilarious, until you realize they're also painfully accurate. In BoJack Horseman, Good People Do Bad Things, BoJack's constant grappling with systemic failures and personal flaws mirrors Bob's struggle. Whether it's Hollywood's hypocrisy or Diane's critique of capitalism, the show dives deep into the same systems versus people theme. In Gravity Falls, Stan Pines versus the government. Stan Pine spends years evading taxes and bureaucracy, often joking about the government's inefficiency. While played for laughs, the show's subtext about how the little guy gets crushed isn't lost on older viewers. Let's zoom out to another incredible scene that ties this all together. The politicians don't understand people who do good moment. After superheroes are banned, Mr. Incredible's frustration echoes real-world sentiments about how red tape often punishes altruism. This theme, that systems built to protect us can also suffocate us, is universal. It's why so many fans see The Incredibles as more than just a superhero movie. It's a critique of how society undervalues genuine goodness in favor of control and conformity. Animation, with all its whimsy and exaggeration, somehow captures these hard truths. Maybe it's because we're disarmed by the medium, we don't expect a Pixar film to hold up a mirror to our bureaucratic nightmares, so when it does, it hits harder. Bob Parr's quiet rebellion isn't just a character moment. It's a reflection of every time we've tried to navigate a broken system and felt the weight of futility. The insurance claim scene in The Incredibles isn't just a funny moment, it's a microcosm of everything wrong with the world, delivered with Pixar's signature charm. From Bob's whispered advice to the elderly woman to Gilbert's villainous tirade, it's a masterclass in storytelling that resonates deeply, especially today. Pair it with the politicians don't understand scene, and you've got a biting critique of how society treats its heroes, animated or otherwise. What makes these scenes powerful is their relatability. Whether it's the insurance company, the government, or the endless hoops we all jump through, the message is clear. Animation may be for kids, but it's also telling the most adult truths of all. But I want to hear from you. How did you feel when you first saw this scene? How did you feel when you saw it again, if you were too young to understand the first time? Comment down below, I'm curious to know. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you are new. Thanks for watching. Until next time.